You're not calling her doing that, are you? I go, oh yeah, I am. I called her and I go, I'm.
So today is about multiple offer situations, if you want to share that with them, and then they have extras, of course. So we are going to pretend that your buyer, your pre-approved buyer is ready to make an offer on this house right here, and that's what we just gave you as the listing. You can kind of see the house, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. It's in Peculiar. It's been on the market for 7 days, but we just found out that there is a lot of interest on this house. And now suddenly we are in a multiple offer situation. And this is the house for your people. They have to have this house. They have to have it because it's in the right school district. Grandma and grandpa live around the corner and they need them to help babysit the kids. And she works from home, so here we go. They have to have this house. Now, Yelena, your buyers have to have this house, but Glenda, your buyers have to have this house as well. Like they have been looking in this neighborhood in Copper Creek for quite a while. So think about your buyers. So Yelena's got buyers and Glenda's got buyers and they all need this house. Okay, so that's where we're at, because sometimes this happens. So you have to think about, as a buyer's agent, you have to think about what can I do to position my buyers in the best place so that they can get the house they really want. And of course, they get the house they want and we get paid. So we love that. And we love it when we get to win. You would obviously want to go look at the house. You'd want to take a, peek at it. You would want to see what kind of supplements are here. Let's take a look at the supplements just to familiarize ourselves a little bit. So they only have, let me make this a little bigger. So I'll tell you, when I'm looking at a seller's disclosure, there's a couple things I go to real quick. I don't sit and stare at everything. I look to see that it's a 17-year-old house and they've been in it 6 years. I like to see how, I don't know, I just like to see how long the people have been in the house. And then I start to look for yeses, because a no's or no's. Anything that's a yes, I look. Are there boundaries on the property? Yes. And then it says there's a north property fence line is approximately 18 inches from existing fence. Okay, cool. Not a big deal. That's not really one of the first things I look at. I look at the roof. The roof is about 17 years old. What does that tell us about the roof? What's that?
Good, yeah.
It might. We don't know. We know it's an older roof. It's an asphalt roof. And I believe asphalt roofs last, what do you think, Sandy, up to 20 years or so?
30, yeah, they can last 20, 30.
20 to 30 years, depending on.
And quality, because I sold a house right across the street. So I sold one down the road from this one. It had a brand new roof, 2 years old. The house was 2 years old. That roof had hail damage and had to be replaced. It was $15,000. Right across the way, over in Country, the Windmill Country Estates, where I just sold that house, had a 20-year-old roof, and we expected.
Why don't you clip that on so we can hear you?
We expected, and I sent the state that the seller would need to put a new roof on it. And so the buyer's agent expected it would need a new roof during inspection. So she went in for the kill, got everything she could initially, and expected the roof to be covered under inspections. Roof was good. 20 years old, was good. She actually got a little upset with him, and he said, I like every roof to need replaced too, but the fact is it does not. So yeah, that was a great story.
So there are times when you're in them. Now, this is kind of interesting for us to be talking about multiple offer situations right now, because as Sandy and I were talking, there are some houses that are still going multiple offers, and then there's a lot of houses that are just sitting. So we're not in a hot multiple offer time right now, but they are happening, and we are having agents having to do this. And so that's why, it's just a part of Red School. We thought we'd throw this in here. But there are times that you're finding a house that you can tell there's a lot of things going on with the house. An older roof. Okay. But it's still the house that our people want. So we're gonna have to think about that. There is a small crack in the basement floor. So there's that, then normal stuff. let's see, something else I look at is, and I'm gonna scroll through real quick, I look at the HVAC system. The HVAC system is 17 years old. You can see the heater is 17. I'm sorry, this is the air conditioner 17, the heater 17, and the hot water tank is 17 years old. The roof is 17 years old. It's all original to the house. Okay? And then I kind of keep scrolling through to see there was radon mitigation already put in, and we saw that when we were over there at the house. There is an HOA on the property, and it's $240 a year, so just something to think about, not crazy there, just something to think about. So there is an HOA that you so if we find out there's an HOA, there's gonna be covenants and restrictions that you need to get a hold of to give to your buyers to make sure they're okay. But anyway, so I just do a quick scan of the seller's disclosure. I try to tell my people when I walk in the house or when I'm pulling it up on my app, or maybe I've already looked at the seller's disclosure. Okay, the roof is 17, HVAC system 17, hot water tank is 17 years old. Now, I'm sure it's all probably working and we can have it inspected, that's fine. But just know they're at the end of their life. That HVAC system, again, I've seen some that are working. I saw one that was like 50 some years old and it was still working. So we can't say there's a certain timeline that these things are gonna conk out on us. You could put a new unit in and it breaks down in a year. We just don't know. So just the fact that it's older doesn't mean, just know it's at the end of its life. It will need to be replaced in the next few years. So, but let's just say, and I think this is actually pretty great because there are, in an ideal world, if it's not a multiple offer situation, what would we do with some of those things, do you think? Let's think, not multiple offers. We know that old roof, old HVAC system. What are some things we might do?
It's only been on the market for 7 days.
Yep.
And not multiple offer, I try to just offer less money.
Okay.
I
You
mean, after, if inspections cleared it, that's fine.
Okay, so you're gonna do inspections and
Yeah.
maybe just offer less money due to the older
Right.
age of these things. Okay, what else could we do? If it's, Sandy, we're thinking if it's not multiple offers,
Oh,
we've got old roof, old HVAC, and old hot water tank. What might we do?
I would, I always at my buyer consultation, expect a buyer to get a home warranty to cover the mechanical stuff. And then if it's not a multiple offer, and then, yeah, do inspections and see what the roof looks like.
Did you have any thoughts, Glenda?
That was.
The home warranty?
Yeah, the home warranty is great for the mechanical, but the roof would be my concern with the insurance. I'd have my buyer definitely have insurance quoted.
Like a roof, I'll get an insurance quote?
Yeah.
And definitely that is something that they would have to do along the process for sure. I'm just thinking up front, what I might do is go, you know what, we're gonna do an inspection, because again, in my scenario of it not being a multiple offer situation, let's get a inspection. If we need to, let's start with whole house, and if, you know, they can really tell a lot of things, just the whole house inspector. Ron and Jordan Alabach can get up there and they'll walk the roof. They'll do a drone shot. They'll tell you all the things, and then if there's like a squishy spot or they will recommend an actual roofer to come out. And you can do that too. Roofers will come out for free and look at roofs. And you want a roofer that will shoot you straight, not just like look for roofs to replace, but that say, hey, this one's actually, I know it's older, but it's working. So you can do that. So that's one thing you could do to compensate for an older roof. I like the HVAC, the home warranty. When you're picking a home warranty, they're not all the same. Make sure you read. We have a bunch of flyers and brochures in that room over there. Make sure you're reading through them and see what they cover on the heater and air conditioner and hot water tanks. What does that look like? Because here's the thing. If this is where it gets a little tricky, you can't just say, oh, home warranty will cover that. No, it's not cut and dry like that. They don't want to cover it. Let me tell you that. It's like insurance. They don't like it when we make claims, but you know, they sell you this protection, and then when you go to use it, they're like, oh, this doesn't quite qualify. Well, and I've personally had a home warranty, and I've personally made a claim on my air conditioner, and then 2 years later made a claim on a heater, and I got both replaced, but it was a battle. And it was a fight, but I got it done. So what I've learned is your heater and air conditioner has to be working at the time of the inspection. you know, it needs to be working. It can't be just completely conked out. You go ahead and buy it with the home warranty thinking, okay, after we close, we'll get the home warranty. They're gonna wanna see your inspection report. So it might be in your best interest to say, hey, we're gonna write this offer in a non-competitive, we're gonna write this, you know, no one else is trying to go after this house. We're gonna ask them to clean and service the HVAC system. Get a technician to come in and sign off that it's been cleaned and serviced, it's working as it should. Get some kind of proof there. Then when you get your home warranty and something conks out within the year, you can say, hey, at the time of closing, look at this. We had an HVAC technician say it was cleaned, it was serviced, and it was working at the time of closing, and now it's not. So, that is definitely, there's some things to know about a home warranty, of course. And then here's something else you need to know, that home warranties will want to repair it if at all possible. Even if it's 17 or 20 years old, they're gonna wanna repair it rather than replace it. So you just gotta prepare them for that. And then if it does need to be replaced, they don't just give you a brand new unit. They will replace, most of these companies will replace the unit, but you have to pay for all the connecting pieces and parts to connect it to your existing system. So like for me, last November, 1 year ago, I got a new heater and it cost me $1,900 to use my home warranty. So I did save, but not what you think. Because those were all the extra parts and labor that it took to connect the new unit to my older house, kind of thing. So,
You can pay extra for that though, the buyer's fee.
okay, so there's that. So check with the home warranty, read what it covers, especially if you're going into a house with an older system. And this is, trust me, if I've seen agents, especially newer agents, that go into a house like this and they try to get those things replaced and the sellers are like, I'm not replacing it, it's working fine. But and then the newer buyer's agent will go, but it's old. Okay, but it's working fine. There's no seller in here. No, I wouldn't replace it in my own house. If it's working fine, just because it's old, I'm not replacing it.
But I would maybe say, I'll give you a home warranty where you can budget for a year and then at the end get one.
Absolutely.
And we've had a guy who just went for a listing appointment and he's like, I'm not fixing anything. I said, well, I did explain to him that the best bet would probably be to sell it with a home warranty just because of the fact that everything is 17 and 20 years old.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's gonna make it like, it's not gonna sell as fast if we don't.
Right. So the home warranty is definitely the route I would go on this house. And then, like I said, we'll just kind of see what the roof inspection comes back. If they say there's wind and hail damage, we might, you know, depending on how bad, we could ask the seller to possibly make a claim on their homeowner's insurance. There's all kinds of things. It's not cut and dry. There's 100 different ways to kind of approach this. And hopefully they replace the roof, but they may say, actually, it's old, but it's in great shape for its age. Okay.
Which is what I had. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the first roof I've ever had like that. So it was a different quality of roofing materials. It wasn't builder grade.
There are some that are done at 17 years old. They're done. They need to be replaced, but then there are some that'll go 30 years. So we don't know. We're not, and here's the thing, we don't have to know. We need to know a little bit about roofs. We need to know a little bit about HVAC, but we just need to know people who know. So we don't need to know everything about the type of roof and all this stuff. You need to know a little bit, but we're gonna get the experts out there and get their opinion. So, but yeah, that's how I might approach it. And you're right, we could offer a little less money and see if they go for that, ask for some seller. Here's another way, instead of asking for less money, what I might do is ask for seller paid closing costs instead.
Yeah, you get the.
So I keep the cash in my pocket, in my buyer's pocket, rather than just, cause if you come off the price, 5 grand, 10 grand, they're only gonna save a few, maybe 20, 30, $40 a month on their payment.
Yeah.
It's not gonna make a difference. Then they still have to find the money to go replace the system that broke. So closing costs are usually the way to go if there's some kind of repair that's gonna be done after closing, so. Okay, so back to our multiple offer situation. Now here we go. It's Monday morning. We saw this house. This is the house. This is the hottest house. And a lot of people are looking at it. So Jen, I'm glad you're here because your buyers also really want this house right here. So now we've got a 3-way, at least multiple offer situation right now. And you guys need to go to bat for your people to get this house. And so we need to think of ways that you can position yourself, because sometimes three's good. Sometimes it was 14, 15, 17, 20. It got crazy back in 2021, crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard, and I haven't seen any of that. I think 6 or 7 or 8 was like the most I was ever a part of. And by the way, that's stressful on the listing side or on the buyer side. It's really hard on the seller side too. It's not like that's something that we want. We don't love that.
You get multiple phone calls from the same agent. You get one when it goes on the market. You get one when she goes, sees it. You get a call. These are phone calls. You get a phone call after they leave, and then then they make an offer, and then they get another phone call. Did you get it? Then you get another phone call. Where are we with the offer? I'm like, well, I haven't
There's
got
a lot
the
of phone calls, but then you have to sort those offers out. And you have to go through them like with a fine tooth comb to make sure you're not missing something because remember when forgive me, I'm kind of making this all encompassing from the buyer side and a little bit on the seller side to say multiple offers are usually pretty good. They work out well for your seller. But as the seller's agent, it's a lot of work to sort through and line up every offer, because you realize it's not just price that matters. It's every term of the offer. And, you know, how it all shakes out is kind of what you got to figure out. And you got to present that in a way. You can't hand 8 different contracts to your seller and go, here you go, here they are.
Yeah.
There's 16 pages.
After somebody with inspections versus somebody
Right.
that
Right.
USDA with inspections.
So, anyway, but we could do 3. We got 3 multiple offers. So here is something that I created again back in 2021. I'll take one. This is what I created for my buyers back in 2021 when we were almost always guaranteed to be in a multiple offer situation. When we walk in the door, we are walking in the door and there's already somebody in there. There's somebody out on the street, right, waiting to get in. Like, it was that crazy. And it was a different time, and our buyers just kind of knew, like, hey, we're gonna look through this house. Don't worry about anybody else. Don't talk. Don't say how much you love or hate the house. Let's walk and look. And then when we get out in the car and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this house. I'm like, shh, let's get away from the camera. Come a little further. Let's go out to my car. Let's go back to the office. You know, let's talk. And they go, I love this house. This is our house. This is it. Okay, great. Okay, cool. Well, I would give them this, and I have it nice colored. And I would give that to them, and I would prep them actually when I had the buyer consult with them. When I had the very first buyer consult, I would tell them there's a good chance we're going to get into a multiple offer situation, and I want you to be prepared. So let's get that buyer agency signed. Let's get your pre-approval in here. Let's get ourselves ready so that when we find the house, we can jump fast. And so then I would give them this almost like a menu, and I would say, okay, here's some things we can do to strengthen your offer. Take a look and see what you think about them. And I would go through it. I would talk through what they mean. And then that way, when we go to sit down and write the offer, I could say, out of these, what would you like? What do you feel comfortable offering to the seller? You know, like number one, if it's a multiple offer situation and it's a hot market like that, let's be quick. Let's be the first in the door. Let's get our offer in first. That's not a shoe-in and a guarantee of any way, but it shows the hustle and the seriousness of the buyer and the agent on that side, on the buyer side. I love it when people don't dilly-dally. They don't jerk me around on it. Just get in there and write your offer, get it in. Again, it doesn't mean they're gonna win. It just shows their heart and their seriousness for it. Number 2, be pre-approved with a reputable local lender. Why is that important? What's that?
Easier to get in contact with them, get a hold of them, and have a more personal experience.
Yeah, I like to know the lender that if I need to show up at their office, I can get there within 30 minutes or whatever. A local lender, a reputable lender, somebody that somebody else has heard of, not mom and pa's mortgage lending. Sure they might, or yeah, US Bank, Navy Federal, Bank of America. Those are tough. They're reputable, but not always, well, I won't say, they're valid and legit lending
In their own way.
in their own way.
Yes.
But I always, if somebody comes to me with a Bank of America, US Bank, Navy Federal, like some of these big banks, Wells Fargo is another one.
Oh,
That I'm like, okay, cool, I'm glad you're pre-approved, congrats. What do you think about checking with a local lender, somebody who does just mortgage lending? Because these banks, they do everything. They do checking accounts and savings accounts and bonds and CDs, and they do a whole bunch of other stuff, and mortgages are just a part of what they do. What if we get to a place that mortgages is all they do? And then, like I say, so, they don't have to do that, but it does make a difference, because when you go to a big organization, just so y'all know, this is kind of a side note, bunny trail, those big banks, yeah, you might be assigned to somebody, but there's chances that you might have an originator that you're working with, but chances are you can't reach that person. They're away from their desk. You have to leave a voicemail. Mr. Cooper is another one. Mr. Cooper is a name of a bank out of Texas.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, who's Mr. Cooper? Is this a private loan? No, it's Mr. Cooper, a big bank. But I had one of these, and Mr. Cooper, I could never reach my guy. Ever. I had to always leave a message, and then he would call me back when I'm in the middle of something, and it was awful. Anyway, another one, Rocket Mortgage. That's tough. Those are tough. I forget some of the others, but there are others that are online. Make sure that they're, and by the way, there's a difference. Oh, look at me, Sandy, getting on all these bunny trails. It's hard.
It's easy.
There is a pre-qualification letter and there's a pre-approval letter. We want the pre-approval letter. There's been some more checks and research done on that buyer. A pre-approval letter holds more weight and credibility than a pre-qual letter. Because somebody can go online and fill out a couple, like somebody can get a pre-qualification letter just by going to rocketmortgage.com. You answer a few questions, you print out your pre-qualification letter, and nobody has looked at their stuff.
Yeah, you just state all of your income and assets and everything. No one is verified.
No one's verified. You can say whatever you want to say. They issue a pre-qualification letter.
And then you make an offer and you find out they didn't qualify.
Yeah.
Because they were self-employed and.
So I wouldn't be writing offers for somebody who only has a pre-qualification letter. Send them back again, say, but it's Sunday and nobody's answering the phone. Okay, I hear you. I can start working on your offer, but on Monday morning, you better be calling somebody. Let's get you pre-approved. So that reputable local lender, the lender has in my deals, the lender has been a make or break sometimes when I'm on the listing side and I'm looking at the different lenders. And I've worked with some that are phenomenal and great, and I've worked with some that are awful and I never want to work with them again. And so, and then sometimes it's just the company even. Like I really prefer certain companies over other companies. So, but anyway, so having a reputable local lender, and I know the buyer gets to choose their lender, but you can advise. And sometimes, I've worked with lenders I don't even know and never heard of before. So what I might do on that one is call the lender. Hey, how long have you been in business? Where are you located? What, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your business. And are you willing, when you're working with a buyer, ask the lender, like when we get in this multiple offer situation, are you willing to call the seller and put in a good word for our client? Because we share this client together. See what they say. They all will say yes, usually. Number 3, be flexible on your close and possession dates. So one of the questions we might call and ask the listing agent on this house is, hey, listing agent, we were just in your house. We were at the open house. We were one of the 30 people that were there. And my buyers really, really like the house and we definitely want to be sending an offer. So let me ask you, what's most important to your seller about an offer? Because if we can hit that with our offer, I definitely want to make sure we do that. So what's most important? And they might say, you know what, we would appreciate a quick close because they're closing on a property down in Texas. They got to be out of town in 2 weeks. So the sooner the better. So that's, or whatever they say, or they might want a longer close. They may say, hey, they haven't found a place yet. Can you give us more time? So having that flexibility, go for it, Sandy. And if you want to say something here, jump in.
Well, what important?
So yeah, always, and I know that some listing agents get frustrated with this question, but I don't care. If I'm a buyer's agent, I'm going to do it anyway. What's most important to your seller? Is it price? Is it, You know, they want to do it as is. Is it that they want to sell fast, sell slow? What is it? And see what they say. Because also you learn other things. They may not just say that, they may tell you other things too, that's important to theirs. What you got there?
No, I just said that.
Oh.
That's just one of the things. Can you think of anything else?
Price? Maybe they just say, hey, they'll take the offer that nets them the most money. They really need every penny out of this house. Condition, or I'm sorry, like in its present condition or repairs, something like that. They may say, hey, they don't, like Jen's person, I don't want to fix anything. Okay, that's good to know. Well, isn't that good to know if we're going into this?
Where are they going?
Yeah. Where are they going? Yeah, where are they going? When do they, yeah. Okay. So these are some of the things you might hear. Those are the most common things you're gonna hear when you ask that question to a listing agent. Okay, so that was number 3, be flexible. Number 4, something you can do is shorten your inspection period. How many, so what's the default inspection period? How many days? 10. 10's the default. If we can shorten that up, or, I have when they're waive them all together. I don't love it when buyers waive inspections. I don't love it. But back then, that was something they were having to do. So I might actually take that off of there, but shorten the inspection period. Why would that be attractive? Does anybody know?
So if inspections don't go well, your house can go back on the market quicker.
Correct.
Hold off that long.
Correct. So think about it. You can shorten the inspection period, and I was always doing that. I would even maybe call an inspector while I'm in the house going, hey, do you have any availability on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week? I need to get, if we get this house, we need to get moving. And I might have the inspector already lined up. And then that way I can go back and go, hey, we're gonna get our inspections done in 4 days. But you have to think, is there a weekend in there? If you're writing an offer on Friday or Saturday, don't say you're gonna do it in 4 days. And make sure your buyer understands, we're gonna have to move on this. You're gonna have to get with that inspector. You're gonna have to pay that, figure out what you want, pay it, and let's go. Make sure your buyer understands that. So maybe you had your hand up?
So I don't think I've ever had my buyers find their inspector.
I'm sorry? Oh, I always do. Here's why, Jen. Send them a couple, say, hey, you're welcome to use your favorite inspector. Do you have a favorite inspector? Usually they're gonna say, well, no. Well, you know what? I've worked with several. I'm happy to refer a couple to you. Get on their website, see what they do, see what it costs. You pick the person, you let me know, because I never want them to come back to me and say, your inspector said it was fine and it's not fine.
And they will.
And they will. They'll blame
Yeah.
They'll blame you, they'll blame the inspector, they'll blame everybody. So let them choose their own inspector. And sometimes I'll refer, here's 3 great inspectors, and then I'll find out that the inspections were scheduled with random guy. Okay, fine, that's their choice. I'll be there and I'll open the door for random guy inspector. And because they got to talking to their neighbor and their neighbor loves so-and-so random guy. Okay, I don't care. I don't care. And maybe I just met my next favorite inspector. I don't know. So good thought there. These are great questions. So shorten that inspection period as much as you can with reasonability. Don't back yourself into a corner so far.
Weather. Always.
Think about weather.
Weather.
Yeah, think about holidays. If it's Memorial Day weekend or something, a longer holiday. Now, I will tell you, inspectors, a lot of times they're a lot like us. They work on their own schedule. They work for themselves. So I have been able to find, and back in this crazy time, I was able to find an inspector who could inspect the house at 7 p.m. at night, because that's when the seller said we could get in there. I was like, okay, hey, we'll do whatever your seller wants because we want to be accommodating. And so I found an inspector who was willing to come out at 7 at night on a Monday and do an inspection. So it's possible, but I wouldn't bank on that.
I put a lot of credibility behind an inspector, if you ask me, that they're willing to be flexible with you.
Yeah.
Like that. They're like, okay, we'll definitely use you in the future.
Exactly. And, not that I always want that inspector to be known as the 7 p.m. guy or the outside of hours guy, but he did win my respect, and I have referred him because of it. Okay, so something else you can do is an escalation clause. That's number 5. if you're willing to go higher to win, so if you're, you know, you don't know who you're up against and you don't know what they have to offer, but you're saying, hey, this house lists for 309, we might come in at 309, 310, something like that. Decide what you're gonna come in at, and then come up, say, but we're willing to go up here if anybody else meets or beats our offer. And so, talking through what an escalation might look like. And I didn't print that sheet, but I can print that sheet. And I always say, my older buyers, I can talk to them about eBay, because eBay used to be a thing where you would bid and say, you put in your highest bid, what you're willing to pay for this item. And then what happens is you can go to bed, you can go on, but eBay will continue to increase your bid until you tap out at your ceiling price. And hopefully you win, but maybe you don't. I kind of explain it like that. I don't know how you might explain it, but yeah. So an escalation clause could be something. Number 6, this is me.
Several escalation clauses when I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I kept getting outbid on every one, because we would look at $160,000 houses, we'd go up to 180 on the escalation, and they would be over 200.
It was crazy.
I
It was
tell her, I'm like,
crazy.
You want
All
me to
cash
tell-
offers, like it was crazy.
Mhm.
It was hard. It was hard. It was a hard thing for some of our buyers, but number 6 is something that I was doing back then. I probably wouldn't do it right now just because it's not a hot seller's market like it was. But I would offer 2 large pizzas on closing day. There's very little value. I would. I would write it into additional terms that the buyer will give a gift card for 2 large pizzas at the restaurant of the seller's choice on closing day. And I got a chuckle out of it. It worked, and some, because it just showed they remembered me. And I heard several people go, I'm gonna steal that. I'm like, hey, go for it. And I had to buy several pizzas, but or my buyer would buy it. But sometimes I would just pick it up because I'm like, hey, if it takes 2 large pizzas to win the deal, I don't care. I'll pay for it. And on closing day, because closing day is a little crazy for everybody. 2 large pizzas take care of dinner. So it's something like that. One of my buyers, one time, he was a landscaper. And he said, when he bought a house at this time, he's like, if they take our offer, I will mow the grass from now until closing. So we wrote that in there, and he would take his little lawnmower over there once a week and he would mow the grass. The problem with that is he was also checking on the house going, hey, I think they're removing stuff. Hey, I think, so I got a play-by-play every week of what was going on there. I was like, okay, just hold on, it's still their house until closing day, but he loved going over there and mowing the grass, and they loved it that they sold their mower, so think outside the box sometimes. I won't say just anything goes. If there's something kind of iffy, you definitely want to run it by the broker. You want to run it by Darren, get his approval on it. And sometimes when you're writing things into the contract, the lender, like one lender, so my pizzas, for the most part, when I would do that, they would go through just fine. And I would show up with the gift card. I'd ask, where do you want the gift card to? Domino's, whatever. I would show up at the seller's title company so that when they signed papers, they got that. That worked for the most part, but one lender one time made me draft an official document because I wrote it into the contract. It became a part of the contract that the sellers had to sign off that they received the pizza gift card. So whatever, one time it did that. So you gotta, when you're getting creative like that, you definitely want to run it by the broker and get Darren's approval on it. Number 7, an additional escalation. I never did that. That was something they were doing back then. Like, hey, if we have to escalate it again, we can, or let's get through this part. Let's get through inspections. And I don't know.
What would be an additional escalation?
Offering, money or percent over the appraised value. Okay. So let's say we were doing this. I just didn't realize that's, so what it would say is like, hey, we're going to come in, let's say if this was multiple offers, 309, we're going to offer you 325 for this house. But in the event that it doesn't appraise for 325, my buyer is willing to give you 5,000 in cash over list price, over appraised value. So it's cash.
Okay, so you do an escalation cost up to the 325, and then.
Well, the contract is now at 325. Let's say the contract is at 325. We escalated up to 325.
Okay, so you did the escalation clause and then you also did the additional.
Yes, and we called that appraisal gap, we called that,
always wrote it into additional terms in the contract.
Yes.
Because I just wanted it to say what I wanted it to say, not what
me too.
it says somewhere else.
So you would definitely, if you're ever gonna do that, get the correct wording on that. Because what you don't want to happen, let's pretend 325 is our value. The appraisal came in at 315. So we have a $10,000 appraisal gap from contract price and appraisal value, $10,000. Now, some people were saying, hey, we'll make up the difference, but we never knew what the difference was gonna be.
Yeah.
When we're writing the offer, we don't know. Are we talking 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand? We don't know, especially when we were all going so high. So what an appraisal, I almost called it like appraisal gap coverage. We know what gap insurance is. It's kind of like that, saying, hey, if we end up with the gap, my buyers will bring up to whatever number they're, let's say 5,000, not to exceed the 325 that they were willing to pay. Okay, so in that event, we're at 325, appraisal came in at 315, they're willing to pay, so their loan will be for 315. But they're gonna bring an extra 5 in cash, so they have to make sure that they have it, gotta make sure they have it. 'Cause that was the other thing, people are like, yeah, tell them that, and then they didn't have the money.
Yeah, they didn't realize it wasn't financed in.
Yeah, you gotta have the cash. So the final price on that scenario would be 320. So 325, it didn't appraise for that, it appraised at 315, but they're gonna bring extra 5, so we settle in at 320. That makes sense? And you wanna make sure it says not to exceed the purchase price, because if it's at 325, and let's say the appraisal came in at 322. So now there's just $3,000 gap. Well, they're not gonna pay 5 and go over what they originally were gonna pay. They're just gonna have to pay the 3. Does that make sense? Okay, and if you ever get yourself into a situation like that, we'll talk you through it.
Just know what your buyer's cap is on those.
Yes.
things, like what they won't go over.
And make sure they have to.
And make sure they have the cash, and that they understand that they have the cash for inspections, which they've already done, appraisal, which they've already done. They have to have cash for closing costs, cash for their down payment. So if they offer any other cash, it's in addition to those 2 things. You can't make it all, like, yeah, I've got 5,000, and realize that that money is earmarked for their closing costs.
I
Yes.
usually check with the lender and make sure
They do.
they're
I do
covered
too.
on that, because they've already looked. I don't ask what they're covered for. I just make sure they're covered, because I don't want to know all their business.
Right, I don't either.
As long as the house doesn't, like, let's say this house is 309, it appraises for 325. But they're buying it for 309, can't they tie their closing costs and stuff in that because it's under appraisal?
Well, you don't know that at the time.
You don't know.
Some loans, though, you possibly can, can't you?
That's between them and their lender at that point, if they're
Yeah.
gonna roll them in after, I don't know.
Is it common for a buyer to roll their closing costs into their loan, or do you typically need the cash?
But as
It's,
long as
you
it's,
can definitely roll it as long as it appraises,
See, yeah, that's.
as long as it appraises. So that's where you go in, you ask for 5,000 or 6,000 in closing costs. So that's, and then seller might say, hey, I'll do it, but you're gonna have to add 5,000 or 6,000 to the purchase price. And so it has to appraise for that 5,000 or 6,000 for them to be able to credit it back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is common.
And then if it doesn't appraise, then we're back to a whole nother
Yeah,
conversation.
we have to negotiate again and figure out where we're gonna get that money.
But you can't roll your inspections in.
No, or appraisal.
Mhm.
Okay, so, you could offer number 8, I'm on number 8, offer a lease back option for the seller. This is where the buyer and the seller agree to buy, work the transaction through, but the seller may want to still need to stay in the house a little longer. So you could do a 30-day or 60-day lease back to the seller. So where they sell the house, the buyer now owns the house, but the seller is now renting it back from the buyer for 30 or 60 days. Now, back then, we were having to let them stay for free.
Mhm.
I mean, you could charge them money and say, okay, I'll let you stay there for $1,000 a month or whatever, cut them a good deal. Or you might just say, hey, you could stay for an extra 30 days for free if you let us buy the house. So if your buyers have that kind of flexibility, cool. And if the seller has that need, they're really gonna love your offer if they get to stay in the house for an extra 30 days for free.
Yeah.
Now, what do we have to think about for that?
If they can damage your house.
They could damage your house, so homeowners insurance?
Oh, yeah, there's a.
So who's gonna have the homeowner's insurance on that? The seller or the buyer? You gotta, the buyer's homeowner's insurance has to be okay with that.
Occupancy after closing document.
Yep, there's a whole nother document that kind of spells that out, that if there's damage to the house, what if there's just a natural disaster, a tree falls through the roof, or like you have to make sure you can never just go, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. This house is 16 years old, 17 years old, and then nothing's ever happened. It's fine.
Yeah, not fine.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
I did one where my buyers took possession of a house 6 days early. And it was a whole thing, 6 days
Prior to closing.
prior to closing. And again, I don't love that. We don't love these things. It's possible, but I don't think that they're things that we should always be doing.
I try not to.
I try not
I
to.
don't even mention them unless it becomes a thing, it needs to be mentioned. Then
Right.
I don't like it's just a big worry to me.
It is. Something else, number 9, offer a non-refundable deposit. I didn't ever have anybody take me up on that, but it is something that I've seen, not my buyer, but I heard of a buyer that said, hey, I'm gonna put down 3,000 in earnest money. It's non-refundable. If I don't buy your house, you keep that 3,000. That was a thing, and it helped them win that offer. And they did buy it. So it just counted as regular earnest money at that point, but,
If you do inspections and decide you don't love it, you lose that money.
so you have to make sure you understand this stuff, and you have to do a really good job of making sure your buyer understands this stuff, because if they don't understand non-refundable is non-refundable under all circumstances,
Yeah.
and they lose 3,000, they're gonna be really upset with you.
Yeah, they may even fire you.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they don't understand.
Something that's ordered by the bank, so wouldn't it be tied into the loan?
Say it again.
Isn't the appraisal something that's ordered by the bank, so wouldn't it be automatically tied into the loan?
Yes, and I'm not talking about an appraisal, I'm talking about like a deposit, earnest
no,
money
I
on the
know.
front end.
I was like, two things about it.
Oh,
Cause you said they pay out of pocket for inspections and appraisals, but the
Yeah.
appraisal's actually ordered by the.
So inspections, the inspector works for the buyer, the appraiser works for the lender. But the buyer pays for both.
and so the bank does order the appraisal, correct, and they charge the buyer for that appraisal, use around $500.
Sometimes it's tied, sometimes it's tied to closing, but sometimes they'll actually make you pay it before.
Usually,
Before
in my
you-
experience, they usually make them pay out of pocket, so I
Yeah.
always just tell my people, make sure you have that money on hand.
Usually they won't even order it until it's paid for. So,
They want
Most
to
of
send the
the time.
appraiser out, because they run the risk of it not closing too, and then
Yeah.
now they're on the hook for that appraisal.
Pay for their appraisal first.
They probably do, and you wouldn't even know
yeah,
it.
you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know it. It doesn't go through you at all. It goes through the bank.
Yeah.
So, something to prepare them for. When you're talking to your buyer, you have to tell them, here's how much cash, because sometimes you're working with buyers that don't have a lot of cash. You're gonna need money for inspections, plan on, $500 to $800, depending on, it could be more, it could be less. But I was telling $500 to $800 on inspections, about $500 for an appraisal. You're gonna need down payment and your closing costs. And I try to give them, depending on the price of the house, give them some estimates and say, this is how much cash you can be expected to have on hand when you close. Do you have it?
Also.
Yep.
Commission, what did we talk about at the consultation to write into our offer?
Yep.
So we
Yep,
need to know
you
that.
gotta think about commissions. Now, that is a whole nother, that would be another, I would need to probably update. No, I wouldn't update this actually. So I'm not offering my commission.
No.
So, let's, yes.
But it's a conversation that already should have taken place at the buyer consultation.
Yeah.
Where if the seller doesn't want to pay our commission, are you willing to?
Are you able and
compensate?
willing to compensate me?
What if they say no? Then do you just say, then we have to go to the next house?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Then we'll need
If
to find.
that seller's not willing, yes.
Yeah. And I would tell them, hey, we're still seeing sellers pay buyer agent commissions, but there
Yeah.
is a chance that we run into that one house that they're not. And then if we find that out, or we write the offer and they come back and say they're not willing to compensate my commission, then we have a decision to make. Are you able to do it, or do we just need to go find another house?
My sellers are not minding.
Yeah, I'm
At
not,
all.
yeah, I'm not finding that they're
They're-
minding.
I
But then
just
if you
think
had a seller actually had to pay it though.
They all
You
the
actually
sellers
had a
pay.
buyer that have actually had to pay it though.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Cause I've got two people that.
As long
that
as sellers
selling.
are, you're not gonna have a buyer that has to pay it.
Well, my seller, I've got two sellers right now that I'll be listing in the future and they're like, I'm not paying it.
Well, you need to explain to
You
them
need to work
the
on that.
narrow.
I did, I said it's gonna cut back our showings. I said their buyers don't have a lot of money anyway. I said, so coming in having to pay that extra,
They're not gonna be able to. They're gonna skip his house.
You may not be able, you may not, I mean, you consider this. I don't know if I would work with that seller personally. I don't know if I would take a listing because I don't know that I could sell it,
I don't know that
especially in that price point.
they understand the value of a buyer's agent, which
not to
is
the
up
point
to you
now,
to
I think our house
explain.
sells itself for the most part. I don't really think it's specifically the agent. You could try all you want and all you can on a house. Sometimes houses just don't sell.
Well, I think the agent makes a lot of difference personally.
Okay.
So I don't know your experience or where that's coming from, but
Personally, when I have a listing, I express the value of a buyer's agent. There are so many times I'm the buyer's agent as well. And I personally, I'm not gonna sell a house if I'm not gonna get paid. I mean, I'm not gonna go to work if I'm not gonna get paid.
does your
How about
seller
you?
like to go to work and not get paid? Does he like to go every day and work and not get paid?
That's the
Well, no, I
question.
explain them my commission. They're okay with paying my commission. They're not okay with paying.
Let me ask you the question, does he like to work and not get paid?
Well, I guess not.
And
but
you
then-
won't
Probably
have a
not.
commission if a buyer's
gonna
agent
get-
doesn't bring
That's
a
true.
buyer.
A buyer has to show up with money.
But I can't make them do it. I can only explain the situation and
Correct.
lay it out to them.
That's right.
You know, on the Thursday, I think it was last Thursday meeting, I was zoomed in and Rustalyn, I think it was, showed a video of a lady who was giving a speech. And she had said technically the buyer is paying for it anyway, because those commissions come out of the sale of the house and they're the ones buying the house. So
Mhm.
it's kind of coming from their money anyway.
Yeah,
If they don't,
If you
if a
tell the
buyer,
Seller, I mean,
if
yeah,
a buyer doesn't show up with money,
right.
the seller gets to keep their house.
Yeah,
right.
And they're not
Which is-
selling it and nobody's getting paid.
nobody,
So-
even the listing agent,
Well,
which in this case is you.
The buyer's agent is going to put that commission into the offer, whether your seller says I'm not paying.
And that's
it or
up to the
not.
lender
Right.
too.
So if the seller, I mean, say it's an okay house and the seller, you know, it's been on the market for a few days, you get that offer with the commission, the seller may just change his mind and take that offer and pay that commission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and explain that too. I said it could be written into a lot of our offers too.
So Jen, I'm sorry, you're up against a hard spot there, but hopefully you can
Hard.
convince this person that they need to offer a buyer's agent commission. And if they don't, I would question whether I would want to work with them,
Yeah.
personally. That's just personal conviction on my part. Because I want to fight and go to battle from the buyer's agents. We're in this together. I don't want to work for free and I don't
We
want to.
work on both sides of the deal.
I don't want a buyer's agent working for free. They're not gonna work for free.
Especially if your seller is also going to be buying a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, is he gonna go buy? Once he sells?
He doesn't know yet.
Okay.
But
Well-
more.
Well,
like
if he is, he
Well,
needs
tell him to
realize-
prepare to pay his own buyer's agent at that point, because that's what he's doing. That's what he's making somebody else do. And he must have the most amazing, beautiful, up-to-date, desirable
Nothing wrong,
house
no.
that everybody's gonna wanna come work for
Yeah.
free to get their buyer
That's
into.
true.
And that's probably not the case. So anyway, we can move on. So those are some things that we can do to make somebody's offer a little stronger. I obviously left off price. That's kind of a given. You can always, ramp up the price a little bit. Understand it has to appraise. And if it doesn't, what are we gonna do with the gap? So let me ask you that. What if a house doesn't appraise? Whatever price, we could go in at 309, we could go in at 300 and it still might not appraise. So what happens in the event that you've written an offer, you've gone under contract and it doesn't appraise? What happens next? What are our
Is it
options?
still a multiple offer or are you the only offer?
Let's just, at that point, you're the only offer, because there can only be one contract. So at that point, there's only one buyer and one seller, and it doesn't appraise. What happens? What are our options?
I laid it out to my buyer directly, because this literally just happened and we're actually closing today. I told her, I said, VA came in, I said, what we can do, I said, it's up to you, we can fight, I can bring them all the comps, we can delay our closing for 2 weeks.
For
I
what?
said,
What would that do?
Huh?
What does delaying it 2 weeks do?
Were you
Well,
in a Tidewater situation?
She said VA, so.
yeah, it was a VA
Yeah.
loan, so basically they came out, they looked at the house, it didn't appraise for the 318, it was 310. I said, they're willing to not make us pay the closing costs, take it at 310, or we can wait 2 weeks, I can give them all the comps and everything, to try to push it up to the 318, completely up to you. That's what I told them, I said, it's $8,000, up to you whether you wanted to wait, but they were rush, they wanted to close, so I said, but there's also no guarantee.
Okay, so here's our choices. When a house and the appraisal comes in short, it comes in low, it's an opportunity for another negotiation. So what the options are, the seller can drop the price to the appraisal value, because we know the bank will only loan what the appraisal came in at. So a couple options. The seller can drop the price, that in this case, $8,000, and come down to 310. Cool, if they're willing to do that, we change the purchase price, we move on through to closing. If the seller doesn't want to come down, your buyer could bring some cash and say, okay, I can bring the 8,000 in cash. They might say, you know what, I can't bring 8, but I'll bring 2. Then that seller may feel like they're getting something. Say, okay, I don't get the 8, but at least I get 2 over whatever. So the buyer could bring money. So that's option number 2. Option number 3, the buyer's agent and seller's agent could ask for reconsideration. That's what it's called when you challenge an appraisal and you hope you can provide enough comps to change the appraiser's mind to come up to where you need it to be. That's option 3. Option 4, either party can cancel.
Which I've had before.
Yeah. And nobody usually wants to cancel by the time you're that far into the process. But depending on what the appraisal actually comes in at, and time has passed and things have changed, it's possible. So those are the you kind of need to know, there's a couple options there.
How
I
does the
did look in
process
that
work?
situation that if you're going and listing a house, whatever comps that you use to bring with you, don't go this way.
Yep.
You might need those.
You might need them.
How does that work? You get notified by the lender that
The
the house
buyer's
is
agent?
appraised?
The buyer's agent gets notified first because the appraisal happens on the buyer's side. They will call the buyer's agent and let you know, hey, we've got a problem, got the appraisal back, it came in low.
Okay.
So then then they will share the appraisal with you.
They will, okay.
Yes. Because at that point, it's kind of like all hands on deck, we need to figure this out. And they will share it with you, and you can share it with, you have to prove, you can never call the listing agent and go, hey, our appraisal came in 8,000 low. You have to prove it with an appraisal. And you'll want to put that in your dot loop, by the way, put that appraisal in there. And then you can go through it and see what comps did this appraiser use?
Okay,
What
so that's included in
it
it.
is.
Okay.
Now, how do you pull teeth to get those?
You don't pull teeth, it just comes. If the appraisal comes in low, it just comes. You ask for it or they're already sending it to you. And there's no pulling teeth involved. And then you share that so you get on the phone with the listing agent and go, hey, listing agent, we got a little problem over here. Appraisal came in, we're $8,000 low. And so just to let you know, I always let them know, like, hey, heads up, I'm gonna dig through this thing. I always kind of let them know, like, hey, just to prep you, appraisal came in low. I'm gonna dig through this thing. I'm gonna see what we can do to get it brought up. Meanwhile, let's just put on our thinking caps and see what we can do. I'm gonna send over the appraisal and maybe you can look at it with me.
But typically as a buyer agent, you've already pulled the comps and can see you're either at the high end or you're at the low end. So
The
when
challenge,
you're at the high end, you should have concern.
the challenge for me back then, when we were getting some lower appraisals, is when we were escalating the prices. So you start with comps here that say 309, cool, but we end up with an offer at 320. I don't know if I have comps at 320.
Yeah.
That was the challenge, and you'd have to go, you might have saved your comps, but that doesn't help you to get to
But
320.
usually the listing agent would know, and so then they would say, are you willing to pay if it doesn't appraise? So then are you gonna have an appraisal gap? So they would usually ask for something.
And remember, buyer's agent and seller's agent, we're on the same team. I know we're on two sides of the transaction, but we are teammates here to go, you guys want to buy, we want to sell, let's put our heads together to think how we can overcome this obstacle that we both have right now.
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
it's not a tug of.
It's not,
war.
it's like, it's not us
anything
versus
like that.
them. Cause I have seen some agents go about it like that. I'm like, whoa, hold on, drop the animosity here. That's not our enemy. We are teammates trying to get everybody to the closing. table.
Co-oping,
Co-oping,
we are
that's right.
cooperating together.
That's right.
So then you have the appraisal, you've contacted the listing agent, you've sent them the appraisal.
Yep.
You've notified your client, you're figuring out with your client what they want to do. Do they still want to buy the house?
Yep.
Do they want to bring cash? Do they want to
Typically,
counter offer at a lower price?
It's a
What's the
negotiation back and
next-
forth, and maybe the seller comes back and says, you know what? You guys did come in 20 grand over, so we'll just drop our price to what the appraisal was.
Okay.
And I think that that's kind of been most common, like I mean, not in the crazy hot sellers market, but overall, that's usually the most common.
yeah, I had one seller back out. Not on the whole time, and I knew we were offering too much, and so did the buyer, but we thought the appraisal would take care of it, and we thought the seller would sell. The seller had put $30,000 or $40,000 down on a brand new construction, so wouldn't you think, because that's non-refundable,
Hmm.
that they would continue? They did not. They lost their 30 or 40,000 and said, we're not selling.
They must have really not wanted to sell,
Yeah,
if
not
they
at
were
that
willing to
price.
lose that. Well, yeah.
So what's the documentation at that point? The seller says, we'll take it, we'll
We'll come down,
come down to the appraisal price,
and it's an amendment,
just an amendment.
Just an
Mhm,
amendment.
To change the.
just an amendment that says the new purchase price will be $310,000.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's a one
Simple.
sentence thing that drops the price.
Easy.
Mhm. So it's easy to do that. Let's say the $10,000 gap, your people are gonna bring 3,000. That makes everybody feel like it's a win-win. Then, okay, it's an amendment there too. The new purchase price shall be 300. Oh, this is where it gets a little crazy.
I forgot what the original one.
So the price actually would be, I have to think about this.
Are we on this house or no?
I'm just thinking, oh
Oh.
no. When we get to that point, if the loan will only be 310 or whatever the appraisal value is.
Right,
So they have to bring cash and it gets written up a little bit different.
so it would get written up as the new price is 313.
See, no, because that won't pass the lender who's
Oh.
saying,
Okay.
so it has to get written up a little differently.
Okay.
It's almost,
Closing costs or
it's like a
something.
credit to the seller.
Yeah.
I forget, I have a transaction coordinator that really helped me through all of that piece but just know it's possible. So the sale price would be 310 because that's the appraisal. And that's with the loan, because if you put 313, it's still gonna get kicked back from the underwriter. So it does get a little hairy at times. Never freak out. Keep your calm hat on and go, okay, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. It can be done. A lot of things can be done. It's just a matter of sitting for a minute and asking enough questions to figure out how. And ask the lender, how do I write this up, lender? So it doesn't flag your underwriters. How
Or
have you seen it
increase
done?
The closing cost or the down payment or whatever.
Yeah,
It's not rocket science, so it's real simple.
well, yeah, and then like I say, you can ask the lender, you can ask title, you can see, because
How
they're
they
working with
want
all
it
kinds of other
written
people
up.
too. They're seeing more things than you've seen. So,
The lender's really gonna be the driver of that, how they want it written.
and you can ask any agent around here, ask Lonnie, ask people who have done a lot of business, what they've seen and what they've done. So, great question. And if you do have to go and challenge an appraisal, because I had to do that one time, it came in low, my buyer was gonna lose the house because the seller said, hey, that's crazy. I think that's a bogus appraisal, don't agree with it. I'm not dropping my price. My people could not bring any money. And so they were gonna cancel. I was like, hold on, wait. Let's see if we can get this appraisal to bring it up. And so it was worth it. My people were willing to pay more if they could finance it in. They just didn't have the cash. And so I worked, the seller worked, the lender worked to get the appraiser to change their mind, and they didn't change their mind, and they lost the house.
How do you contact
Which is 9
the
times out of
appraiser?
10.
Do you
by
just
the way.
call the
You can call,
appraiser
they will give you the
directly?
name and number of the appraiser, you can talk to them, yes, but I think you do have to do it through the lender. You do have to send your comps to the lender who will submit them for you.
Okay.
But yeah, you can absolutely talk to the appraiser. You will get their name and number and just go, hey, talk me through this. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And again, the appraiser's not our enemy. The appraiser is also our friend trying to get to the closing table.
But see, they're getting scrutinized too. The appraiser, the lender will also have their underwriting looking at the appraisal. And oh, by the way, if they don't sometimes agree. And so then they'll do like what they call a bench appraisal. Have you had that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I've had that with a condo in the plaza. And so then they go out and do their appraisal and see if they come up with the same thing. So,
You'll learn a lot as soon as it happens to you.
yeah.
That's when you learn and how you learn. I mean, we could sit here and tell you and you take all the notes and that's great, but the best learning is when it
And you
happens.
may never have that issue, like I've only
bench
had it once.
appraisal. Yeah, I've never had
bench
one.
appraisal.
So, you know, so there are 3 points of negotiation. I always tell my people, there's 3 points of negotiation in a transaction. Obviously, when we first go under contract, there's some negotiating going on but until we settle in on some terms. Then the inspection period. If we're asking for inspections and they're saying yes or no, we're negotiating there. And then, and there's 3 places that this thing can fall apart. At the beginning, at inspections, and at appraisal. Now, at the appraisal, the only time there's a place for negotiation and a way out is if the appraisal comes in low. If it appraises at or above value, we just zoom on through. So,
Lending, we have a contingent.
yeah, there's a contingency on lending, but nobody can that would be a lender decision to cancel. So if your buyers get cold feet, they better figure it out real quick in the first 10 or whatever your inspection period is. And remember, they can cancel in that inspection period for any reason at all, and they don't have to tell you why. They don't have to say, they could just say, hey, I changed my mind. Hey, I do need to do some inspections. Like, get a roof and do something
There's
easy.
something on
Do
the
something.
inspection to cancel.
And then just say, hey, we're canceling. You don't even have to, if they say why, and just say that they just don't feel comfortable proceeding. You don't have to say why.
Yeah.
Again, I'm in the weeds. Look at me.
Yeah. It's easy.
It is, it's easy. There's a lot of things to
So
know.
many things.
And while we're here, let me tell you about 5 good
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's write an offer. Let's write an offer. So we're gonna give you a blank offer. Go potty. Stretch your legs, whatever you gotta do.
Have you read offer yet? You have. I don't think she has yet.
She has, she's
Okay.
worked with a buyer too. She's had a couple closed transactions.
Okay.
If you choose you want, and in its present condition, I have that. We'll fill that out. And I do think we should look at that because
Yeah. We should.
we've
You
had
need
it,
one?
yeah, I'll need it. Thank you. Okay. Here I am, just leaving this sitting here. All right.
If somebody, my listing had a showing today. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
You're being recorded, so I'll update this for later. Are you still
Yeah.
recording?
You are.
I don't know if they can hear
Oh, okay.
without the
um,
microphone.
Well, if somebody was interested in that house, it might make a difference. I would wait.
Okay.
All right, let's wait then. All
I'm
right.
just wondering would it show up in Broker Bay if they actually went? Like, do they have to mark completed?
Do you have a lockbox or do you have a blue
Combo.
box? I would get away from those combos
I
as
do
quick
have-
as you can.
I have the super one in here.
Okay, then you can look on your, online with them and see who went into the house and when they left.
Because if you have the Supra, it tells you when it was accessed and when they so when they take the key out, and when they put it back in.
Like how long they were in there.
Yeah,
You can say, oh, they were only in there 3 minutes.
But those combos, man, I don't like them.
yeah, I've learned some things. Like you can just go in them. You can just go in them.
They shouldn't,
Yeah.
but they could.
Right.
It's my password.
You ever start down south, you'll hardly ever see a Supra.
Yeah, yes, when you get out into rural areas, you will not see first.
Okay. Unless there's some like hide-in fancy,
Yeah.
random company that get.
Well,
randomly
there's
got
not
help.
good enough internet service, like to use them is why they don't, I think.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna go to
Wow.
the offer so we can follow along together. I gotta get to the right.
It's hard to do like that, isn't it?
It is, you're looking over your shoulder, residential. Okay, I'm gonna do one with you, or at least pull it up so we can look together. I know for the sake of the,
Like, see, I couldn't type in anything the other day.
well, I've got it
Oh.
under, I've just pulled a template. If I put it in a loop,
Oh, that's right.
if I would have put it in a loop, it would do it.
I don't ever pull them like this and try to fill them out.
Okay, normally on your dot loop, you will be able to type and fill in these things. I didn't put in a loop. I'm not gonna be able to type, but we can at least follow along. So,
I already have the box, you can just type it, or you.
yeah, you just type right in it. In dot loop, not Forms R Us, but dot loop. You can type right in it. And on the page 4, when you're typing in the numbers, it'll do the calculations for you. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Does the math.
Yeah, I didn't pull that one the other day.
I always do the forms. Always go to forms and hit download and then upload.
No, if you do it in dot loop, which all these documents already live inside of dot
Yeah.
loop. So you don't need to go download them from somewhere else and upload them into dot loop.
No.
That's a hard way to go, because then you're putting in text boxes. It's double the work. So normally you would be able, it's not gonna let me, but normally you could just type right in this box.
Right.
Okay, so, now, seller's name, where do we get that? That's right, we get it from the seller's disclosure. Catherine and James East, and they're married. Catherine and James East, so that is your sellers. Catherine and James East. And they're married. You can do it just like this, or you can put AMC. I put AMC, a married couple. Okay? We're gonna, maybe, I know Sandy had you write an offer, so we're just gonna zoom a little quicker through this. So that's the seller. Now put your buyer's name in there. Make up your buyer name. Joe and Sally Buyer. Or maybe it's a single person. Maybe it's, you decide. Put your buyer's name and make sure you put their marital status also. Remember, they're either married or they're single. That's it. That's just 2 choices. Can't be widowed. They can be widowed, but that's single.
But what's important to the seller?
Well,
Did we find out?
yeah, okay, so I think they said the seller on this one just was looking at the price, the net price. A 30-day close would be fine. They've got something under contract, but it's not contingent. They're just moving to the lake.
Did they already find a house?
They did, and they're under contract on it, but it's not contingent upon them
okay.
selling this, so, they're really just, whatever they can get out of it, price-wise, so they can take it to the lake is kind of what they're hoping.
Okay, well, that's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Okay. The next section, line 9 through 14, it's not bank owned. None of that applies right there. It's not a mobile or manufactured home. And, so we don't need to worry about there. The next thing we need to look at is, line 18, the property we need to put on line 20, the street address. That's on the sheet you have. So put in the street address, 11502 East 207th Circle, Peculiar, Missouri. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're gonna keep moving. Oh, my goodness. Line 23, what county are we in? Cass County. The legal description, where do I get that?
Underneath where it says legal time.
But confirm with tax record.
Yeah, definitely want to confirm. For the sake of time, I'm just gonna grab it right now. I'm gonna grab it right here.
But confirm that
But
with
definitely want to confirm it.
They literally ended up putting like 2 lines on my contract for my legal description, and I put TBD because if it's out in the country, I'm like, it's gonna be a long legal description, we'll get it here in a second. come to find out the legal description really was a whole paragraph, but
Yeah.
the agent summed it up and they sent the contract over. And
So
then like,
there is, if there is a really long, there's a whole nother form for that. Addendum. But for this one, thank goodness, it's just Copper Creek, second plat, lot 39. It is on your MLS sheet that I gave you.
My son lives there. And the, yeah, not there, but
Yeah.
over there, yeah.
So you can plug that in, to the legal description. And again, if you're doing this on Dotloop, you can literally copy and paste. It's easy. If you know, if you're handwriting it, which I don't usually handwrite contracts.
Unless I'm an older seller who need, or buyer.
Or
that
moving
needs-
fast or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm gonna try to type it.
Do it on the.
Okay.
Now,
Now, for the sake of time, we are going to kind of buzz through this a little bit because Sandy already went over the contract with you. Read the contract, make sure you read the contract to see what stays with the house. So this is saying, these things are written into the contract that they stay with the house unless specified otherwise. Okay, I'm not gonna get into all that. Now, I'm on page 2, in additional inclusions, exclusions, and additional terms. These are only things like, the following items, if any, supersede the seller's disclosure. Let's say they love the drapes. Well, the drapes are supposed to stay. Let's say something else.
Refrigerator.
The refrigerator. Let's say they want the refrigerator.
Is it thing?
I don't know, let's see.
oh, it's on the back part. I'm like, where, what page?
Okay. Let me go to the back on the seller's disclosure to see that it is
It's
OS,
staying, okay.
staying. And the freezer in the kitchen is also staying. Well, I guess that's
I
the
think
same.
they're talking about the refrigerator.
Well, let's see, the garage refrigerator is not listed.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, it says NA, but maybe we saw one while we were
Yeah.
there and we want that garage refrigerator. We can ask for it. And by the way, Sandy, I don't know what you do, but if it says OS, it's staying, I go ahead and write it in there also.
Yeah, so don't forget and take
Would
it.
that be under additional inclusions
No,
or
it's
additional?
just inclusions. Where am I going? Inclusions. Kitchen refrigerator to stay with the house, or I just write kitchen refrigerator or garage refrigerator. You gotta specify. Because what you don't want to happen is you wanted the kitchen refrigerator, but they left the garage refrigerator, which is usually a piece of, not junk, I mean, it may not be, it may, you wanted the nice stainless steel one out of the fridge, you can't just write refrigerator, be specific. Or you want, you know, your kids, it has a nice play set out back. And you want, your people want it, you can ask for it, see what they say. So that's what inclusions, the exclusions might be, maybe they don't want the play set out back. Please write that under exclusions. Seller to remove play set out back before closing.
Or fountain.
Or fountains, or, yeah,
whatever.
whatever it is. So if there's something you want included, put it in there, or if something you want excluded, pull it out. I had my very first listing, very first buyer, had a giant tree. The guy was a landscaper and a tree guy. And he had a giant walnut tree, like giant, and it was laying in his property. And I didn't write it in here that it should be excluded, because I just thought it's a given. He's gonna take it with him. It's pretty valuable. It's like $1,000 tree. He didn't take it. So my people now have this expensive tree, but it's laying in the back anyway. It was a whole thing. I should have put it in the exclusions, and I didn't. So I learned.
Already bunch of pizza at additional term.
I put it right there under additional terms, 2 large pizzas. Buyer to provide seller, 2 large pizzas at closing, yada, yada. Okay, next section, home warranty. Remember, we're in a multiple offer situation. Is it a good idea to ask the seller to, it's up to you and your buyer. I'm not gonna tell you. I'm just asking questions. We don't need to talk about it because you don't want to disclose your terms for your buyer. We got other competition in the room here, but think about that. Do you want to ask for a home warranty or not?
And they're like $800, just
Yep.
saying.
$800 if you had to fill that out. So if you're saying, they want a home warranty, you have to check one or the other. If you don't, it's gonna get kicked back to you on compliance. So they either waive the opportunity for a home warranty or they're gonna take one. So if you need help with that, let me know. Now, the addenda, these are the following addenda that go along with your contract. We need to check, there is a seller's disclosure, so check the box on line 100. Lead-based paint, do we need that on this one? Nope.
2007.
It was built in 2007, so we're good there. Now, is your buyer contingent? Hopefully not, because we've educated them. Maybe they are though, I mean, hey,
Your multiple offer.
that would blow your multiple offers, so let's say they're not. And if there's anything else, like for instance, if you end up doing an in its present condition, that's an addendum, you would type in there, you would write other, you would check the box and then type in its present condition. Okay.
But would you want to do that on a multiple offer situation too? Think about that.
If you end up doing an escalation clause, you would write that in here.
Think about that.
Think about that. All right, page 3, descriptions and conditions. Right now, because you're gonna read this or have already read it, I'm looking for blanks. That's what I'm doing at this point. Are you, this line 135 to 143, this is where you have to disclose if you are related to if you're buying it yourself, or if you're related to your buyers, you're gonna mark that. Or if we find I don't think that Ashley is the listing agent is, nope. If you read the MLS and you find out that the listing agent is related to their seller, you would have to mark that.
You have to tell, like you
Yeah,
did.
you have to disclose, and she didn't, so I think we're good there. Nothing needed here unless you related to your people. Again, I'm looking, so think about your purchase price. Remember, this was listed at 3,099, multiple offer situation. What are you gonna offer? What are you gonna offer? The cool thing is, I don't know your buyers, only you do, so you get to make this up. Are they cash buyers, FHA buyers, conventional buyers? Are they VA? USDA would work even. So think about the purchase price. And then on the next line is earnest money, which, by the way, no, I'm not gonna get into that, earnest money. I know Darren likes to add extra days here.
Yeah, bye.
I don't. I leave it at 3. See, this is the cool thing. This is why I love getting different people up here so you can hear different thoughts and approaches and see what works for other people and find what you like to do.
It depends on me if I leave it at 3. If we're on a Thursday or a Friday,
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah, I'll
gonna
do
go
5.
more. And I'm gonna go.
And I'm telling you, and I love it.
Yeah,
I leave it at 3 because all earnest money can be paid online now.
yes.
I don't know of a title company, maybe Butler or something like
And
that.
that depends on the person
It does.
again, like how are they gonna do it? Are they giving you a check? Are they bringing, how are they doing it? So
The
all that
reason why,
matters.
Sandy, because it makes sense on the buyer side, but it's like Darren said, if they don't get that earnest money turned in that amount of days,
They'll cancel.
either party the seller can cancel on you. So cause I put my listing hat on, so even though I'm writing it as a buyer's agent, I put my listing hat on, I'm thinking, I don't want somebody coming in here telling me they got a week to turn that in.
Yeah.
If they want this house, I need them to get that turned in. They need to show some effort and get that turned in.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. You do what you want, you
And
do.
that is how you gotta think, like, what situation are you in?
Cause if I'm the listing agent and this person is bringing, and they say they have 10 days to turn in earnest money, I'm like,
No.
and you must not really want this house.
Yeah.
If that's how this is gonna go, that's what I think.
I
But
think 10 days.
Darren has been doing this a lot longer than me, so it works for him. I'm just saying there's different points of view on it, and you get to
And
decide.
each transaction's different.
It is. It is. Okay. Earnest money, 3 days or whatever you put there. Put in the earnest money amount here and, how much are you putting down? Remember, does anybody have any thoughts on earnest money? When the buyer goes, well, what should I put down? What are you gonna tell them?
Minimum bill.
1%? I've heard the 1% rule.
I was telling them at least a minimum of 1,000 most of the time. But a lot of times they won't even look at $500.
Correct. I mean, and if you're on the Missouri side, especially rural Missouri, I think that's totally fine. If you're ever doing business on the Kansas side, they're gonna want 1%. It's kind of like their unspoken rule over
Yeah.
there.
I kind of like that idea
I do too.
myself. I
And so-
kind of use that.
And some listing agents, kind of put that in there, like, hey, it just shows more.
I feel like it shows they're more serious is what I think.
I do too.
One
If you're not willing to put down 1%,
You're not.
so 1% on this deal would be about 3,309,
3 or 4,000 is what
It doesn't
I
have to be exact, but somewhere around there. So again, or you can put $1,000 down. There's not a required
But I
amount.
will tell you, you put 500 or something like that, or even 1,000 probably on Lonnie's, and he's gonna ask for more.
Yeah.
He
You
doesn't-
put down $500. Here's the thing, the reason it's some skin in the game for the buyer.
Yeah.
It's showing how much skin they're willing to invest to say, hey, I want this house. I'm-
And I'm not just gonna walk away, cause I'm leaving a good chunk of money behind if I do.
Well, usually it's refundable, right?
In the
Unless
inspection
you
period.
write it.
Section period.
That's why.
Yeah.
Non-refundable deposit, like, is that what you're talking about?
Nope.
Mhm. No.
No, see,
Earnest
notice
money.
here, there's an option to do earnest money and additional earnest money. One can be refundable, one can be non-refundable.
Okay.
So I'm not talking, I didn't make just a blanket statement. I'm sorry.
On that paper, you're talking the second one?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You can mark it non-refundable from the top. You can just say, hey, I'm gonna put down 4,000 non-refundable.
Yeah.
I'm not
I wanna
backing out.
show that the seller that I really want this house.
And if I do back out, you're gonna get to keep my 4,000.
But I don't think I am, because
Right.
I can see the house is 2007. I didn't see anything huge, although there will be things and they
Yeah.
know it, but some buyers are pretty savvy. They've already looked it over pretty well.
So, okay, and again, make sure you read what you're writing here. Where are we depositing that earnest money with?
Line.
Is it Alliance?
Mhm.
So I find that here on the bottom of the listing, Alliance title. So you're gonna write in Alliance title.
Yeah, I know where
we go.
to place it, so it's fine.
Okay, so additional earnest money, if you're not putting anything additional, just put a 0 out there in the blank, out here on 186, just put a 0. All right, so total amount financed by your buyer. Sometimes you can't, I always think to me, it's backwards that's the next question.
Mhm.
Because I always have to skip D and I have to go down and see how much are they putting down. They know how much they're putting down usually,
Mhm.
and that can change, by the way, but up front, let's say, well, I'm not gonna say, I don't know your buyers. I don't know if they're putting 0 down. I don't know if they're putting 40,000 down. I don't know. I don't know your buyer.
We don't know if it's conventional VA, if it's.
So what I do is I go down here to E and I put down what they're, let's say I'm just gonna use an example. If they told me they're bringing 20,000 to closing and they put 3 down in earnest money, so that tells me what's 20 minus 3, 17,000. That's what the balance, that goes here in the E. So then, once I know how much they're putting down, I know the purchase price and I know how much they're putting down, then I can go down and figure out how much they're financing.
And it will automatically calculate too,
And
by the
then
way.
that loop will, if you've chosen the right form, it will calculate it for you. Okay,
Okay, so the balance on E would be your earnest money deposit plus your closing costs.
earnest money plus down payment.
E is minus them.
Okay, it's
Oh,
B,
okay.
line B and C and D. Oh, less B, C
Yeah.
and D.
They're subtracted. Mhm.
And I don't know your buyer. I don't know how much they're putting down.
But it would be the amount between it'd be the,
So you got a purchase price, whatever you decided your buyer's offering, minus the earnest money, minus their down payment. Whatever they're bringing to, now I'm not
Okay.
talking closing costs, I'm talking down payment.
Okay.
So minus those things, what's left over is how much they're financing.
okay.
Okay. Cool. All right, section F here, total additional seller expenses. Line 206, seller compensation to the broker assisting the buyer. This is your commission. You need to figure out how much is your commission that you're asking the seller to pay? That,
And remember what you talked about at the buyer consultation as well.
yeah, what's on your exclusive buyer agency?
Mhm.
Put that in there. Please put something in there or you're not getting paid.
Yeah. Anything.
Okay, and then line 2 here on F2, additional seller paid closing costs. Does your buyer need closing costs? Remember, this is a multiple offer situation. But they might. Okay,
So the first one would be the seller paying it.
Yeah.
This is, the whole section is seller expenses, the whole section right here, of what are you asking the seller to pay for? So line one is your commission, line two are closing, seller paid closing costs, concessions, whatever the word is. And then line three, costs not payable by the buyer. That's, usually there's not much that goes in there. Some lending programs may prohibit a buyer from paying certain closing costs. But normally, can you think of something what goes in there?
Well, VA changed it, though. It was, termite inspections, but
But even then, yeah. So
They
usually,
changed
Brian,
it
you got
anyway.
anything that ever goes in there? I can't think of anything that usually goes in there. So usually this line is a 0. So down here, total additional seller expenses, you're gonna add box 1, box 2, and that will give you line 218. That makes sense. So you're gonna total that up.
Where do you put if the agent's paying their own?
it's not gonna be on there.
So if the buyer's paying your commission, then you're gonna put a 0 right here
Okay.
on line 1. That tells the seller, hey, seller, we're not gonna ask you to pay my commission, my buyer's gonna take care of it.
That you have that aren't gonna pay a buyer's commission, your offer should come.
But I bet they
not gonna
don't.
pay that.
I bet they come with a number there.
They will.
Oh, I already warned you, right?
Okay,
Yeah, so if you did your seller's estimated proceed sheet, that's where you've already, put in what it's likely going to happen.
okay, moving on to page 5, other financing costs. Again, just read this. I'm looking for blanks right now. And then, so on line 238, closing and possession, this says that on or before what date? Now remember, go back to the conversation you had with the listing agent. What'd they say? A 30-day close was fine? They're not in a hurry. They've already got their next place. They're moving on. It's okay. So they're not really concerned about the close date. What day are you closing on? And so that's the date you want to close on line 238. And then on line 253 is when are they going to take possession?
I always put there, I put at closing and funding.
Yep, I do too.
And that way I don't have to ever change that.
So it looks like you have to put in a date, but really you can type in there at funding. So that means when everything's closed and the money has changed hands, the buyer can move in and take
Yeah.
possession of the house.
Most title companies will send you an email when it funds and closes.
And you need to tell your buyer, hey, buyer, you cannot go over to that house until I tell you you can go over to that house.
But you have to put a date at the top.
No, you don't.
one.
Oh, on the top one, I'm sorry, yes, at the top one you do, on closing, but then on the bottom one for possession, you can type at funding.
Okay.
And by the way, if you read this, you can put, some people do put a date in there. And they'll say at 5 PM on the closing day. Here's the thing, guys. If you read this, it says they can't take, it doesn't matter what you put there. If the money hasn't, if it hasn't funded, they don't get to
Yeah.
take possession. So I think that they should probably rework that, but whatever. And then line 6, appraised value contingency. Now, they're talking if this is a cash sale. If you have a cash buyer, your cash buyer does have the right to do an appraisal. Most of the time, they don't choose to, but they can if they want. If your buyer is cash, you have to say, hey, you can do an appraisal if you want, and you have to tell them, they have to do their own, like 5 days, 10 days, whatever it is. Wait, calendar days was in this contract. It just depends. But you would have to specify if they want to do an appraisal. Because if they're doing cash, there's no lender involved to sign off on that. And so they would have to decide, hey, I want 15 days to do an appraisal. If it comes in low, we work it the way it's financed.
Also, depending on how much money they're putting down, sometimes the lender will waive the appraisal
Right.
because it's gonna appraise, because they're putting so much money down.
So, okay, so that's that. So, oh, by the way, I'm just again going through this because that is usually I don't mess with any of this. I leave it as it is. I'm leaving it blank because you see it says 5 calendar days if left blank, 5 calendar days if left blank. And because I know what's up and I know what it says, I'm gonna.
So if the appraisal comes in low, you have 5 days to decide how it's.
You have to notify the seller in writing
What's gonna
within
happen?
5 days and attach a copy of the appraisal report, and then you have 5 days to kind of renegotiate.
Otherwise, you can take longer, but you gotta amend that.
Okay, now I'm on page 6. Under paragraph 7, under the sale contingency. Is your buyer contingent? Do they have to sell a house before they can buy this one? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, you're gonna have to go into dot loop and pull a whole nother form that you're
Yeah.
gonna attend and put that in the addenda.
Yeah.
Whatever. Again, another bunny trail. Paragraph 8, financial terms. Is this a cash sale or is it a financed sale? Mark which one. You have to choose one. And then it talks about they can shop the loan, it can change, but anyway, I'm not gonna get in those weeds, never
If
mind.
you do that ever, change loans during a contract, if it changes the closing date, you could be liable for all the money it costs the seller.
Or if it changes or if it changes the
Type,
type.
yeah, type will create a crazy seller.
If you come in with a conventional offer and you
Yeah.
decide to change to FHA, first of all, the seller has to agree to that.
Yeah.
And and I've had people like switch and not tell the seller until the end. And so you can switch, they call it a product. You can switch products, but it has to be the same or better.
Yeah.
You can't go from a conventional loan to an FHA loan, but you can go FHA and go, you know what, there's better terms and we can actually go conventional.
Which is better.
Which is
for the
better.
seller.
So again, if you ever come into like your buyer all of a sudden wants to change lenders or change the terms, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Talk to me,
somebody.
talk to us
Yeah.
before you just go doing that.
Okay.
And the lender should know that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after you've done that now, line 311, type of financing. Are they gonna live in this house or is it gonna be an investment loan? Check one. And then tell me on section B here, the loan types and terms, the buyer is going to be what? Are they conventional, FHA, VA, USDA? That kind of thing. Check the box on the
For
primary loan.
primary,
Usually there's not a secondary loan.
I have not had.
I've never had a secondary loan.
Bonnie had. Back in the day, there were a primary.
And then the interest rate is almost always fixed rate. So check the fixed rate. See you, Jen.
Yeah, lines and parent teacher conference.
And then on line 329, amortization period, how many years is their loan gonna be? 15, 20, 30, put that in there. And then the principal amount or loan to value, LTV. So think to yourself, you gotta go back and do a little math and say, okay, if this is FHA, they're only putting down 3.5%, so you're gonna put 96.5.
Yeah.
If they're putting down 20%, then what's the loan to value? 80%. So you
So
put 80%. Yeah, 80-20. I've seen different people write it different ways.
So this should always be a percent.
I put a percent, but I've seen other people do like 80/20,
That's what I do. Whatever it is, 3.5 slash.
and I just put 80%. But either way is fine.
Yeah,
Either way is fine.
we get to the same idea.
And here's the deal. If that changes, if they go in saying, I'm gonna put down 20% and then they start working with their lender and they find out, okay, we're gonna save some money, we're actually only gonna put 10%, you don't have to go in and change that.
Yeah.
You don't have to amend that and let the seller know.
That we know.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
thought of
could be a moving target. for
it
me.
could be. Okay, next page. So page 7, the loans will bear interest on that primary loan. You're gonna check the bottom box, the prevailing rate at closing. You're gonna check the bottom box. And then there is no secondary loan, so we don't have to check anything on the secondary loan part. And then paragraph D, loan applications. Here's where we're gonna say our buyer is pre-approved by, and tell me, this is where you're gonna put I want the loan officer's name and their company. Some people just put the name or just the company. Put both. So
I
if it's,
could put my number too,
Sweet.
if it's a multiple offer situation, to make it easy for them to call the lender to check to see if we're fully approved and blah, blah, blah.
so I would not be writing an offer myself if the buyer is not pre-approved.
No.
So I've never had one. I'm not writing an offer for someone who's not
Yeah.
pre-approved. I'm wasting my time, their time, seller's
Everybody's
time, and I'm gonna look like a fool.
Yeah, like, really?
Oh, really? You're
You're not ready.
non-pre-approved
I
buyer.
have no money.
Okay, section E talks about loan approvals. This basically says that your buyer agrees to make a good faith effort to get that loan. Because on the buyer side, they've got to be turning in documents. They got to be turning in tax. They got to do their part. They cannot just drag their feet, not do their part. So it says right here that they put time limits on them to get that done. Again, I don't change anything because it already has default number of days in there. So I don't usually change anything here at all. And then even down here, lender appraisal requirements. This basically says the seller agrees to pay an amount not to exceed 0 if left blank for requirements, yada, yada, yada. I don't put anything in there either. I just leave it at 0. What do you
I
do?
put 0. Yeah, I put 0 there because we don't know
We
what
don't know.
we're agreeing to yet.
We don't know.
Like,
We can
we just
negotiate
leave it
that later.
blank.
Yeah,
Until the appraisal comes in, I mean, and then we know what could be there, but we don't know.
We don't know.
At that point.
okay, so page 8 says, utilities, again, I'm looking for blanks. Utilities have to be kept
We went
on,
over all that the other
the
day.
maintenance has to be done, and insurance has to be on the house.
Yeah.
There's no blanks on page 8. Page 9, survey, your buyer has a right to do a survey if they want. Inspections, that's pretty important. So I'm on paragraph 13, line 462, inspections. The buyer may within blank calendar days. How many inspection days are you guys gonna do? Today's a Monday, and it's not a holiday. Put it on whatever you want,
Because we're multiple offers.
because it's
Yeah.
multiple offers. Yep. And then again, you've read all this, you know what all that says. Wood destroying insects, we don't know yet. But if we do find it, the sellers.
Is there a garage? Detached garage or
Okay, so,
something?
yep, here on line
Separate
510 says that if you want anything else to be
Yeah.
inspected and to be considered a part of the inspection
Inspection.
contingency part, then you need to write that in.
That's a big deal, by the way. I did, when I first started, had a house that had a detached garage and once they did inspections, they're like, we want all this stuff fixed. The electrical had some stuff going
In the
on.
detached garage.
Yeah, in the detached garage and I never filled that out. So that's a big deal.
So
'Cause-
additional structures to be included. Now, if they just have a little shed, if they have a little something, I wouldn't put that in there. Cause that thing could be hauled off. If it falls down and it's a
Yeah.
piece of junk, it could be hauled off and
It
you
is
still have a
rough.
great house to live in.
But this was a huge barn that
Yeah.
had some electrical issues and I was like, well, we got through it, but.
Well, if it's got a barn, if it's got heat and cooling and if it's got electrical, if it's, yeah.
Yeah, plumbing, all that.
Put all
yeah.
that in there. And then it talks about inspections and what happens if the buyers don't like the inspections and what can happen. Okay, there. Also, what is what is
Yeah.
not an unacceptable condition? I never put anything in here.
Well, see that EX, I go back to the seller's disclosure and see if there's anything EX in there that
Excluded.
does matter to your buyer. Like for instance, a generator or something like that. I just had that. She put EX, the seller, she did not want to fix it or anything. But the buyer, they were real concerned about it. So they wanted us to do something, but they never put that there. So she came back and goes, they're really worried about that generator. And I go, well, your offer didn't say you were worried about it. We had a EX.
Excluded, so that would mean they couldn't cancel based unless they
On
wrote
that.
it in there.
Yeah, unless they wrote it in there, they couldn't ask us to do anything with it.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
anyway,
But I usually don't ever write anything in there personally, so if you don't write anything in there, okay. If you do, okay.
just go over the EXs with your buyer and make sure they're not worried about something. What is it?
Except the property and this is what to do if read that about what can happen with inspections. They can take it as is, they can cancel, they can offer to renegotiate. Page 11. It talks about then after you've done inspections, you move on to resolution of unacceptable conditions. And this is where the buyer and seller will have 5 days to kind of negotiate back and forth about any repairs that you're asking for. Again, I don't add or change anything there. Again, I'm looking for blanks, so I'm gonna keep buzzing through. I'm on page 12 now. Talks about radon, microbials, you just need to understand and educate your buyer on this stuff. Lead-based paint, any kind of criminal offenders, what you're gonna do about that. Franchise disclosure, we used to have a whole form for that. We don't have to do that anymore.
But some people do.
Some people do.
And it becomes a part of the agenda.
So if it's in the supplements, then we can. Okay. Here is, I'm on pages, it's 13, should be 13, yep. Agents operating, so we have some things to check here. How is the licensee assisting the seller? We have to check a box here. Where do we find that out, Sandy?
They know, cause
You
we went
know?
over it the other day.
Where do you find that? How we know? We don't know. We don't know their.
Yeah, we do.
We do on the umbrella.
Okay, what is it?
She's a designated.
Okay,
agent.
good.
So you're gonna check the second box over here on the seller side. The second box, she is a designated agent. And then on our side, we're assisting the buyer. What's our box we're checking?
Designated.
Designated agent. And that's the most common two boxes that you're gonna check. Every now and then, you'll see that, I don't know, it's a seller's agent or maybe, I don't know. Or the buyer's not being represented, you are
That could be a
represented,
common thing these days because they don't wanna pay.
right? Okay, so then the source of compensation, and obviously read that, but I see I have to check a box here or a couple boxes on line 717. Brokers are compensated by the seller. Well, obviously, and it's brokers, we're talking more than one. So the seller's probably, so we're gonna check the seller box for sure, especially because we're asking the seller to pay ours too. So we're gonna check that box. You will also check the buyer box if you are charging them an admin fee. So it'll either be the seller or if they're paying part of your commission. So it'll be one or both. I always check both because I do charge an admin fee. And then, you are gonna sign on this side, the licensee assisting the buyer, that's for you to sign, so go ahead and sign that. On line 720. And then go ahead and, it's okay to forge your buyer's signature, go ahead and have your buyer sign as well. This one time we'll let you forge their signature. Otherwise, we don't do that.
To sign where it says when you send your offer over, cause it's not valid without your signatures.
Okay, moving on to page 14, we're almost done. Earnest money, it talks about the earnest money. You need to know when it needs to be delivered, what happens to it once it gets, the contract, if it gets canceled, what happens. Good to read this stuff. There's so much you can learn. Who gets the earnest money if it cancels? Well, it depends on when it canceled and why it canceled and things like that.
And who depicts whether the buyer gets their earnest money back? It's not the agent.
Nope, buyer and
Buyer
seller have to
control.
agree who get it. On line, paragraph 22, tax aspirations and special assessments, just read it. There's nothing to fill out there. Evidence of title, again, just read. We're gonna ask that they provide us a clean and clear title. Okay, line 833, expiration. When is your offer going to expire? Now, that might have been a question I should have asked the listing agent when I spoke to her. Her on this one.
We should have.
I should have asked, like, when, do you have a deadline? Since it's a multiple offer situation, you need to ask, when is the deadline that we need to have all offers in by? And, maybe it was today by 5 PM, Sandy, because they had a great open house and they had a lot of interest. And they're gonna be looking at offers today at 5 PM. So think about what you would put in expiration there. Now, you don't want it to expire right at 5 PM because they need some time to work with it. And we hope they pick our offer, but if it expires at 5 and they're not signing till 6 or 7, my offer's expired. So give them some time there. But not too much time that they can shop you around. Okay, then on the last page, have your buyer sign. Have your buyer sign, 1 or 2 buyers, whatever you got. And then on your side, you should be able to fill out your brokerage name, your address. Go ahead and fill it out.
And I think over here too, I get irritated when I get an offer and that side's not filled out, because then I have to go do it.
Oh, and I'm
And
not
I want
doing it.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely plug in your
Part of
stuff
it.
and then also fill in her stuff too. Ashley Dwyer.
Recycle.
Where do we get that? We get that from here.
Yep.
So Ashley Dwyer. She's with Reese Nichols. So when you need the address, if you click there,
Yeah.
there's an address at 222 Southwest Main Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. I've got her brokerage phone number here too, which is 816-524-7272. So that's on the MLS.
Oh, yeah, they
What's that?
didn't realize she was out in Summit.
It was
They're
still-
all doing it. They're still in Belton though.
Well, a lot of them have moved.
Well, a lot of them are over right across from Lumax.
Yeah, it's satellite through,
Yeah,
I think it's a satellite of Lee Summit.
which I'm surprised
don't-
Ashley isn't at it. I guess they use Lee Summit address.
They do.
Okay.
Okay. So back to my offer, and by the way, back to Sandy's point here, I'm absolutely gonna fill that in so that the listing agent doesn't have to do anything. I want her to know that, hey, I'm a great agent, I'm gonna do my part, I'm not gonna cut corners. I'm gonna get you a nice, clean, clear contract that doesn't have to be fixed and cleaned up. I can't tell you how irritating that is when I see somebody cutting corners. They don't take it seriously, they leave a bunch of blanks, and as I'm going through this, I'm going, we're gonna have to clean this thing up.
Yeah, she's not a thorough agent. That's the way I always feel.
Yeah.
So from the whole thing's gonna be rocky because they're gonna skip things. that
Yeah,
are
we're gonna have to be the ones to,
To pick up her slack.
right, I don't like that. I don't like that. And I don't want, if I'm trying to win for my buyer, I'm gonna say, hey, you can count on me, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
my part. I'm gonna do everything in excellent. So filling out their stuff here is important. Woo, there we go. And then you are gonna sign here, your name gets signed here on line 880.
Yep.
You're gonna sign there. And your offer is now written. So,
Did you guys do your offer?
okay, now here's another part. Let's look at this. Let's just look at it.
Oh, okay.
In its present condition addendum. Let's look at it. And let's read, let's say they're willing to do this. Your buyer is willing to do this. We need to know the difference between which box are we going to check. So you're gonna fill out the seller name, fill out the property, fill out the buyer name, all that stuff. Then, Yelena, will you read box 1 to us? Would you read that out loud?
Buyer is entitled to conduct inspections as outlined in the inspections paragraph in the contract. Seller will make no repairs and or treatments. Buyer will have the right to cancel the contract during the inspection period if the results of the inspections are unsatisfactory. Buyer waives any right to renegotiate. There is no inspection renegotiation period
Pursuant.
pursuant to the inspection provisions in the contract.
Okay. So that says, okay, buyer, you're gonna take this as it is today. You're not gonna, you waive your right to renegotiate any inspection repairs, and that the seller will make no repairs and or treatments. What kind of treatments might that be, Sandy?
Termite.
Termites.
Mhm.
Termites. So if you're doing that, just know that if there's termites that show up, it's on the buyer. But again, they can do their inspections. They basically, it says they can do their inspections and they can decide, do they want to move forward with the house or do they want to cancel? That's what box 1
They
says.
cannot come back and say, I want the roof replaced.
Right.
They can't do that.
Here, how about this? They might do that.
They might do
They
that.
might do that,
But they are saying.
but they're
that
saying they won't do that.
Right.
So
They'll
they're,
have to just walk away.
they
Right.
should,
They should, because that's what they said.
Right.
Now, we have seen
yes.
that what might happen is, okay, there's radon in the house or something like that. And they may say, hey, would you please, I know we said in it's, but would you, to keep the deal together, hey, seller, would you put a radon system in? And the seller might say, you know what, I don't want to really go back on the market. Yeah, I'll just do that.
Yeah. And
So
that might be
they don't-
okay.
Or they might say, hey, you know what? You said as is, I'm sticking with it.
Mhm.
And if they do go ahead and do that, you need to remove this from the contract, kind of,
Right.
because you are
Right.
renegotiating.
And
with
you're
them.
pretty good with your buyers about, if they check this, about saying, you know, what you told them was that you would do the inspections and not ask for
Yes.
anything. So it's not really right to go back and ask,
It's
right?
not.
It's not.
You're going against what you
Mhm.
told them you would. To get
Um,
your offer accepted, is what
Right.
they think.
Right. Box 2 says the buyer is entitled to conduct inspections for informational purposes only. The seller will make no repairs and or treatments. Check this out. The buyer waives any right to cancel the contract pursuant to the inspection provisions in the contract. And the buyer waives the right to renegotiate. There is no inspection renegotiation period pursuant to the inspection provisions of the contract. So box 2 says, hey, buyer is going to take it in its present condition. They're going to do inspections just so they know what they're getting into, but they cannot cancel and they will not ask for repairs.
Right.
So there's no renegotiating there. You can't lower the price. You can't, they've basically shut the back door. They can't leave
Mhm.
if you do box 2. Be real careful on box 2 and be real careful on box 3.
Yeah.
Glenda, would you read box 3?
Buyer waives any right to conduct inspections as outlined in the inspections paragraph of the contract. Seller will make no repairs and or treatments. Buyer waives any right to cancel or renegotiate pursuant to the inspection provisions in the contract.
Box 3 says no inspections, no repairs, no way out, no cancellation.
Mhm.
They're taking it as is. Good luck.
Right.
That box always worries me a little bit on the buyer side, even and on the seller side. It really does. You think, oh, if the seller side, no, because things do come up after closing. And anyway, it just can, they
I
just
don't-
have to know what they're signing.
I feel like box 2 and 3 are scary for
They
my
are.
buyer. I just really don't like to lock them into something with so many unknowns.
Now, every now and then, depending on the buyer, they may be totally fine. If this is a house flipper and they're gonna change everything anyway, and they wanna do box 2 or 3, cool. You just gotta know your buyer and their situation. Okay, go ahead.
Well, and if I ever get anything like this, I make sure that as a listing agent, if I get something like this from a buyer agent, I make sure I go back to her verbally and ask her, did you explain these to your buyer? They fully understand these, correct?
Mhm.
Because I've had them come back even after I've asked that and start sending me pictures of things.
Yeah, like,
that-
hey, we found wood rot over here, and hey, we
Yeah,
found,
Or the dog peed all over the steps when we removed. Well, no, they weren't. And I said,
to the people.
the sellers, that, yeah.
so I send a note back after I receive all the photos of what they found and said, and ... what would you like me to do?
Yeah.
Because they signed this.
So you're gonna make sure your people understand what they're signing. And you're going to advise them along the way so that when they do inspections and they find maybe it's got mold and it's got termites and it needs a roof and it's got old HVAC. Okay, instead of starting to get their list ready of what they want the seller to fix, you have to remind them like, hey, remember, you said in its present condition, we can maybe ask for a thing or two possibly, but that seller doesn't have to do anything. So just keep that in mind, and just kind of educate your people along the way. Don't let them drive that bus completely because they will ask for everything.
They will, even though they
Even
signed
though-
this, you have to bring them back to what they signed every time because they forget somehow.
And just because you have this, by the way, that's why our office, there's another document that lives in dot loop here that says, the buyers had been advised that it is your right to do any and all inspections that you want to do.
Yep.
That is your right. And
And these are recommended.
these are
by
for the
Southland.
recommended, yeah. So we have them sign another form later.
Yeah.
Anyway, trying to cover you. So, all right. Any questions about your offer that you just wrote?
At
Well-
the same time you're covering yourself, you're informing them.
That's right. And the more you do this and the more verbiage you get for it, it goes pretty smoothly along the way. It's not like a huge, long, drawn out thing and a big school lesson. It's
Yeah.
not. It happens organically as you just talk
Mhm.
through it. May I please have your offers? It's 5 o'clock. All offers are due. Okay.
Best and final.
That is final.
I
Okay.
didn't fill in all my buyer name stuff. so
That's
I
okay.
can take one of this.
All right. Sam and Sue and Joe and Sally. Okay. They sound like lovely people. All right.
Both
All right,
of
so
them.
this first offer, let's see. Oh, they do want the fridge, but it's okay, we already told them. Oh, but look, they're gonna provide a pizza gift card
Good.
and lawn care. I'd be asking.
Is that you? You.
And then, but they are asking for a home warranty at $750 and, they're gonna take care of that. Okay, I see an escalation clause on this one, but let's see, I don't even know what we're escalating yet, because I'm not to that page yet.
Oh, she said so.
Yeah, 3,000
Okay.
over
Yeah,
offer up to 318.
yeah, mine is mostly like notes on how to fill it out.
Okay.
That's fine,
okay.
that's fine.
That's what my pizza and lunch.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I'll, yeah. I'll-
And I'm gonna give them back to you. So let me remind myself, we're listed at 3099. This offer here is at 315 conventional. They're gonna put down 2,500 in earnest money. And it looks like they're putting down some money here. Let's see, they're financing 254, they're putting down about $60,000, 62.
20%.
20%, okay, they're 20%, I haven't got to that. part yet, but yeah. 30-day close. 30-day close. I'm not sure if it's contingent or not.
It's not.
Oh, it's not, okay, I'll mark that.
You probably don't want either of our offers.
And then, oh, it's conventional, I like that, that's good, yeah, they are putting down 20%, so that sounds like a good, strong buyer. Let's see, I'm looking for, oh, they're gonna do inspections 10 days, okay. Not crazy there. But they do want the detached garage to be included in the inspections, so that's that. And again, I'm looking through the blanks and what got filled in. So expiration date is 48 hours or deadline.
Or whatever, yeah, whatever the agent's deadline is.
So what I would do is put in a date in the future, just put in a date. Because I don't know, is that 48 hours from when? Well, let's say,
On a normal one, if I didn't have best and final offers due by,
mhm,
if I didn't have the listing agent's deadline, I'd put in 48 hours, because my buyer's in a hurry. We don't want to wait 3, 4, 5 days
sure,
to hear back.
may I tell you what I do? If I'm putting in this offer today at almost noon on Monday, and there's not a final and best, not a deadline, I'm gonna give them till about noon tomorrow. I'm giving them 24 hours. Unless they tell me otherwise. The listing agent say, hey, my seller sleeps during the day because they work nights. It takes me a little longer to get a hold of them. But you need to put a date of some kind. It could be 48 hours. Just put that date in there.
Right.
And that time. Oh, so you don't actually write 48 hours, you put the date.
I put the date.
Okay,
I usually.
perfect. I
yeah.
thought, I was just, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, if it's a multiple offer and we know it's hot, then it would be. pretty
Gotcha.
quick. But if there's.
That's your
no
notes.
Deadline, yeah.
I'm tracking with you. Okay, and then in its present condition, box 1. Now they did do an escalation up to 3,000 over appraisal value in the event of a,
Which I think that's great.
I think it's great.
Because you know there's another offer out there, but if you don't know there's another offer out there, and
What's
you
that?
don't think there's another offer out there.
Well, we have multiple
I
offers on
always
our
go
listing
in
here,
at
so we're
list price
going over
and
the
then
offers
go.
right now.
Over,
Yeah.
from there, escalate from
Here's the
there.
first offer.
That way you're not giving away your buyer's money.
Right.
Yeah, but in this case, you know there's another offer, so you did the right thing.
Okay, here's another offer. We've got another offer here. They want the garage refrigerator and the play set, but they do want this, they don't want the fountains. They're a little oversized and a little gaudy. We need them out of here.
Taking notes. For having them.
But they are gonna, no home warranty on this one,
Thank you.
in its present condition, and there is an escalation on this one,
Okay.
so like that. This one's coming in at 320, so we got 315, we're at 320. A little more earnest money on this one.
Mhm. She came in strong, but
Let's see, this one also, let's see,
your escalation won't even work, will it?
Nope. She's
Yeah,
over my.
she was only up to
escalation.
318.
and this one is also conventional, so we got 2 conventionals.
And my buyer really wants that house, but she
Got a
is
lot more down
scared
payment.
about the roof.
Yep,
and
this one's
the
got more down
mechanical.
payment, and then this one's asking for 9,400, or 9,400 in compensation. This
Right.
one, I don't know, they just want buyer commission, I'm not sure.
I didn't fully fill it out. I didn't know we were doing this.
It's
part.
okay, it's okay,
Oh, I know what you're doing.
it's okay. So she's taking notes here.
Okay, yours wanted,
Who are the vendors?
Yeah, that is a good question, let me see.
Oh,
Buyer's
commission.
commission.
This one is loan officer name and number. Who's this one? John Doe at Mortgage Company. So,
Loan officer name.
all right. So,
And they're both local.
there are the other local lenders here.
Yeah.
Localloanofficer.com. Let's see.
I think I probably would call John Doe and ask him if we can get an appraisal waiver, since they're putting so much money
Since
down.
they're
on a
putting so much money
conventional lot.
down and not worry, and then,
At the 315, that might be
315.
Well-
safer than the 320. If we
Yeah,
don't think it's gonna
that's
appraise
true.
that much.
it probably won't appraise,
Yeah,
is what we're
that's
thinking.
fine.
We're a little concerned about the
Yeah.
appraisal coming in.
So yes, I think you're right.
So,
Now, they've got so much cash, I may just say, hey, put a $10,000 or $5,000 rating.
right.
Sorry, I'm.
So,
getting
no,
ahead of
you're
you.
fine, you're fine. Now, let's see, this one,
they probably will do an appraisal waiver, and if they don't, doesn't matter, they're putting a lot down.
Oh, the 320, the 320 is a shorten their inspection period to 5 days.
Got 10 on this one.
10 on that one.
5 days on the resolution.
Mine is basically everything we talked about. It's our notes.
Yes.
Your
Okay.
buyer will be happy.
Okay, they also did in its present condition box 1, so those are people.
Did you do? And what was your?
Box one.
Okay.
So
They both did box one.
what I would do if I were presenting this to a seller, I would go fill it in, I'd fill in all the terms, calculate on the estimated seller proceeds, which each one would net. But to Jake's point, and Sandy mentioned this earlier, because your buyer at 315, so you're at less, you came in with less money. But it is possible, and so Jake would call that lender and say, hey, because they're putting down, was it $60,000 or something?
Was yours? at
20%.
60? Okay.
Conventional
What
loans,
was
good
yours?
credit.
Mhm.
Have they been through underwriting already?
That's a question we'd ask the lender, and say, hey, because the loan amount is gonna be 60,000 under 315. So,
It's on there.
yeah, it is.
What is it?
Right.
I feel like
255.
Paperwork is also a lot more thorough.
So 255, so basically the appraisal has to come in at least at 255, and we've studied the comp, so I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that they would waive the appraisal, then we don't have to worry about that coming up later and being a problem.
That's a big.
So at
deal.
her 315, if we can get that appraisal waiver, we get 315.
But I
But-
also call, if I'm the
Sorry.
No, you're
listing
fine.
agent, I'm gonna call both of you and find out what it's gonna look like for inspection.
I
I
don't know,
mean,
the
are
front and
you
back
truly
thing.
going to go by number one? Or are you waiting for something to happen?
This is not-
Sometimes, sometimes the insurance company is gonna come back and say, there's hail damage on the roof, so you don't even gotta worry about it. So what do you do?
That's, yeah, that's a lot of
So
it
that's like a
for my
big
buyer.
deal. The insurance company will go, but a
Question,
lot of
Sandy.
times they will, and they'll do, the prorated roof thing and not even tell the buyer. Yeah.
How worried are we on inspections on this house? Is it pretty clean?
It looks like it.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah, it's
clean.
pretty clean. The roof's 17 years old. All the mechanicals are 17 years old as well, so.
I just wasn't sure how important, because some houses don't inspect as much as you want. It's a
Yeah.
Solid house, it's not,
Yeah, so that's not a big deal, but it kind of helps the seller.
So we know the roof and the HVAC system are older, but it is multiple offers, and these people have to have this house, so I don't know why the pictures aren't loading now, but maybe
They're tired of
they're
us.
tired. Like, you've talked enough today,
For 2
lady.
hours you've been on there.
Um,
Ooh, I have a question, Sandy.
Yes,
Have I tried to call both of the buyer's agents on the seller side?
yes,
Did both of them answer?
yes.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I will mark that. I've got a spreadsheet on multiple offers. Like I've called them twice, haven't been able to get a hold of them.
Yeah. it's
Not
a
great
big
communication.
deal.
I don't know their lender. I haven't been able to talk to them outside of them getting this email.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. They may call and say, what's it gonna look like on inspections? I know you did this, but some agents think just because they did box one, they're gonna come back and ask for all these things during inspections, and my seller is not going to do these things. So,
Sometimes I don't know if this is allowed, but if we have 2 or 3 offers, I'm like, that agent was very nice. I like them, got along, I feel more confident. Sometimes that's a deciding factor.
it is sometimes, and one time I had 20 offers on a house, I'm not kidding, he was a veterinarian too.
Which one
And he
was
was
yours?
actually lived right across the street from me. 20 offers came in on this house. And so I went through and stacked them all up according to lenders and all this stuff. I had a spreadsheet, by the way. But anyway, one of them was a veterinarian too. And do you know, out of all those offers, he liked her. He didn't care about anything else. He goes, I just want her. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay.
So,
She's my neighbor.
I did that on when I sold my own house. I had, and it was in 2020,
That'd be nice. It was fun.
Thanks for stopping by.
I was
Yeah.
curious.
7 or 8 offers. The best one was home company. I knew they were gonna come in and take my little old house and flip it and rent it for 3 times what it was worth. And we started in this little house, you know, I was a single mom, broke as could be, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to give somebody a chance, like
Yeah.
I did.
See, and that.
So I
kind of
took
stuff
the
matters.
single mom
Mhm.
offer, which was, yeah, a little bit less, not much less, and they were
Yeah.
all over.
Yeah,
So it depends on.
at the end of the
Offers are
day,
great.
you know, they could know some of the people too. I've had that too. I'm like,
Or
oh
they
my
will look
gosh.
them all up on Facebook.
I will say you know, back in that heat of that market, my son was selling his house. We got 15 offers on his house. And he knew one of them, they did, and their offer was VA. But guess what? They're VA, so they took their offer.